That's right.
Thank you so much, Tony. Check up with you guys a little bit later. Right now, we're going to bring on Dave Kiesling. He is a Vice President of Transportation Management at Kenco. More importantly, he is a fellow Buckeye. Good morning. How are you? Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for the great weather this past weekend in Chattanooga.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty impressive.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Let's talk about resiliency in your supply chain. You were just
At SMC.
SMC3, absolutely.
It was at your event in May in Arkansas and at SMC3 this past week out in San Diego. And, that buzzword's flying around, and I think it is. Different things for different people, and certainly our customers, and I think all shippers, have a big challenge today, which is, one around cost containment, right, and inflation. The second is obviously fuel, and whether they're efficient or not, fuel plays a big part, I think, in everybody's cost structure. And then the third is obviously service, right? At the end of the day, what we've seen, I think, post-pandemic is some pretty significant service interruptions. We're talking about delays in the rail in your last segment, whether you're talking about delays at pickup or delivery or embargoes. I think that term resilience or resiliency is getting a lot of airplay around those things.
So how can we start? How can companies start to strengthen their resilience?
Well, I think one of the things is whether it's LTL, parcel, or truckload, you got to trust your partners. Right, there's been a lot of investment. We'll talk about autonomous trucks. We'll talk about technology. We'll talk about driver pay increases. Your partners are working really hard to continue to provide the level of service that I think they provided traditionally. So I think one of the keys is obviously trust your partner. And in that means you have to share more. And sharing more, you have to look at your own network or your own business practices and say, where can technology help me? And where can it help me? Where do I have to actually change my business process to become a little bit more flexible, right? Plan for the unplanned. I think in the past it was end of month, end of quarter, right? We just experienced it. It's a Thursday, last day of the month. We're asking people to hold freight until today or tomorrow to deliver. You don't see as much of that because of the inventory levels that I think we've seen in prior years post COVID, but you still have people who are asking at the last minute for the miracle to happen, and the miracles cost a lot of money.
Absolutely. So, you mentioned that resiliency and the different aspects of it are different for different customers, and depends on what vertical or what space you're in business, right? And it affects it. But Kenco's in a bunch of different verticals, right?
Yep.
So what does it mean across the different lines of Kenco? You got, you're VP of Transportation, right? Management. And that's it's LTL, it's truckload, it's courier, it's air, it's all of that. Yep. So across those different modes, what's going on?
Right. So I think all modes is one part, right? And in transportation management, unlike our brokerage business or our dedicated final mile white glove business, those are specific segments servicing a need that a customer has, whether it's flexible capacity or a unique delivery experience in terms of a white glove. In transportation management, all modes, all activity, single source provider for our customers. And then our verticals, health and wellness has specific needs that they have, some of which are retail focused because they sell through retail, but others are institutional. You've got our consumer and durable goods group, and while that acts like a consumer retail delivery, it's usually one time, right? I always use the toilet. I was in the sanitary ware business in a past life. You only buy one toilet at a time at a Walmart or at a Lowe's or a Home Depot, right? So it's a durable good. It's going through a retail channel. It's very different than a consumer, which is our food and beverage vertical, right? And that's every week we're bringing sauce to the shelf, pasta to the shelf. The things you can't live without.
Much more regular,
much more consistent from that standpoint.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. You know, as you look at, you mentioned embargo earlier, right? And there's a lot of people, even in the industry, that don't understand what you're talking about by embargo. But my question about that, and maybe you can talk to it a little bit and kind of explain what you mean by that, is has it become something that's more prevalent now for companies to try and do that, like LTL in particular, and truckload, because of the severe shift that happened during the pandemic? I mean, you had LTL carriers just literally lost their ass because their mix of class on their freight just changed, right? Because you had industries that were automotive, suddenly it was PPE. Totally different revenue per hundredweight, et cetera. And if you're not an Old Dominion who really knows what they're doing,
Right.
then you can get hurt, right?
Yeah, and I think, a few weeks ago, and I don't know if it was just last week or the week before, FedEx has announced that they're going to do this whole network, I don't know if it's a redesign, but optimization, and take, significant dollars of cost out of their network.
Right.
And they're not doing that to be, nice to the shipper, right? They're doing it because they have to.
Yeah.
And because they saw the impacts of having pockets of either workforce be out because of COVID, over demand that was far exceeding their capacity capability, the inability to shift between the capacity that they did have, whether that was drivers or trailers. YRC's on a similar journey in terms of finally becoming one YRC. So again, when I said kind of in the opening, you got to trust your partners and you got to communicate openly with them. They're all going to have bumps on the LTL side of the business, right? But in the end, if you're not communicating with them and you're not using the technology that everybody's invested in, because in a lot of cases, there's been technology that's been invested in that is letting you know that this is going to happen and plan around that, you're going to continue to struggle or have challenges from a service and a cost perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you, SMC, you're at SMC, and we're talking a little bit of LTL. You brought some sonar charts.
Yeah, I brought a couple, and they're not, earth-shaking, but I think the first one.
No, let's bring them up. I mean, you're a sonar user, and you brought them, so let's not disrespect our guests.
Check it out.
What do we got?
I think the first one is LTL cost per hundredweight, right? And it's your basic chart, right? It's the basic freight weight chart. And obviously what we're seeing here is inflation, right? And you're seeing a higher cost per hundredweight. Classes, LTL carriers are getting much smarter, right? They're classing freight better than they classed anything before. They're using technology, whether that's Cubiscans, dimensionalizers, whatever you want to call them. I mean, they're using technology to make sure that they're capturing all the revenue. And in the short term, what happens is shippers get frustrated with that because their costs are going up. In the long term, what shippers should be doing is collaborating and saying, wow, my cost to serve this channel, this type of product, this class of product is actually different. And I need to now begin to price that into what I do in the future.
Make those adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, things have changed since I was a W&I on Roadway Dock in the 80s, right? With an NMFC manual about that thick and a measuring tape.
Did you, were you at a drag line? Did you have?
Oh, yeah. I was on the dock when we removed the first drag line at Roadway Express. We removed the first one in Copley, at the Copley terminal.
I was at 211 as well.
Yeah, were you really? You were at 211? All right, there you go.
Ralph Santarelli was our district manager, I think.
Well, okay. Well, Jim Banks was mine.
Yes, I remember Jim.
Sure. I was there right after Tommy 12.
Yep.
You remember Tommy 12.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, you got another one here, right?
Yep. Second one is, tender acceptance on, contracted freight, right? And I think this goes to the whole business analytics, I think, side of where our business is going, right? We've hired for the summer some, business analysts that are really data scientists. They have nothing to do with transportation. We spent 3 or 4 weeks just training them on, some of the basics of transportation, but they're data scientists. And it's like, this is insight. What's our action plan around this insight, right? And what this is telling, kind of us, is that on contracted business, it should be pretty easy to cover. It should be automated. We should be using the technologies that are out there to do those things. And, as this number creeps back up, which we think it will, as the next wave of imports come in, we need to be ready for what flexible capacity solutions do we need to augment this. But basically, hey, contracted predicted freight should be delivering on time and at the.
It should run like clockwork.
It should run like clockwork.
So what are the challenges that you're looking at and preparing for that flexible capacity, given the current situation we're in right now, right? I mean, bloodbath, whatever you want to call it, you've got the OOs and that flexible capacity really difficult right now. And especially if you're operating on the West Coast when AB5 is coming in effect in like a minute and a half or whatever it is they gave us, you know. What are the challenges there?
I think the biggest thing is to be first.
Yeah.
Be first to quote to the customer when they need a flexible capacity load, right? So using automation to quote. Yeah. The second is to be first to lock up that owner-operator or that small fleet operator who has trucks. And that's where technology and automation have really come in, right? It's being first to get at that capacity is what's going to get it versus get it for, somebody else getting it or getting it at a higher rate.
Right on. I like it. I like it. Hey, fellow Roadway and Buckeye, thanks for coming on.
Thank you guys very much. All right, thank you.
So much, Dave.
We'll toss it to a quick break and we'll be right back.